Diddy walks. Kid Cudi crumbles and Cassie's mastermind moves exposed. You thought you had it all figured out? Think again. This courtroom saga just flipped upside down, and Diddy might be walking, while Cassie's name starts floating like a villain in a psychological thriller. Today, we break down how Kid Cudi's testimony collapsed, and why Cassie might be the one pulling every string. Let's start with Cassie. Cassie Ventura may have testified about abuse, fear, and control, but the facts now suggest she could also be orchestrating a masterclass in manipulation. Here's what we now know. Cassie gave Diddy Kid Cudi's home address right before Diddy allegedly broke in. She also had a burner phone just to contact Kid Cudi. Why hide it? Why go through that level of secrecy? And then, the Porsche explosion. Cassie previously said Diddy threatened to blow it up, and when the car was torched in 2012, it looked like a perfect match to her story. Until DNA came back. The Molotov cocktail used to torch Cudi's Porsche had DNA from a woman. Not Diddy. Not a man. A woman. And that opens the door wide to a whole new theory. Was Cassie setting this up the entire time? Did she plant the story in advance, knowing a firebombing was about to happen? Now let's talk about Kid Cudi. He took the stand. Told the court he wanted to fight Diddy after the break-in. But under cross-examination, his story crumbled. Cudi admitted Diddy denied any involvement in the car bombing. In fact, they had a civil conversation, no threats, no shouting. Just Diddy standing there, cool and calm, like a Marvel supervillain, according to Cudi. Then what? In 2015, Diddy apologized to Cudi in a club. And Cudi said he found peace with it. So why bring it up now? Cudi also testified that he was played and upset when Cassie got back with Diddy. That's emotion, not evidence. That sounds like heartbreak, not a criminal conspiracy. Back to the Porsche explosion. Photos were shown in court. The damage was real. But if the DNA evidence shows a woman threw that Molotov, and Diddy had nothing to do with it, who are we looking at? Cassie gave the address. Cassie had the burner phone. Cassie told the story in advance. Too many dots are connecting back to her, and away from Diddy. And then there's this. Cudi said Cassie told him about physical abuse, hitting, kicking, but never once mentioned sexual abuse. If they were so close, why leave that out? That's not a small detail, that's one of the central claims in her entire lawsuit. So where does that leave us? Too much reasonable doubt. Too many conflicting stories. Too many unverified timelines. Diddy might not be the predator in this case. He might be the pawn. Cassie may have just orchestrated one of the biggest celebrity setups in recent memory, and used Cudi's feelings, Diddy's reputation, and a nation's outrage to pull it off. Was this revenge? A love triangle turned war zone? Or a carefully crafted trap with a public face and a private agenda? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Long before federal agents were raiding mansions and former assistants were testifying under immunity, Wendy Williams was already ringing the alarm.
As far as Diddy will go to prison for life, people. You don't know things that I knew about Diddy back in the day, and you want to know what? It's about time, people. It is about time.
Let's go back to 1998, when Wendy was on Hot 97 stirring up controversy like it was her job because it was. That year, Wendy said something on air that got her fired. According to her, she claimed Diddy was gay and had photo evidence to back it up. Not long after, she was off the air. The rumor mill said Diddy pulled strings to get her silenced. But for years, this was just messy gossip until 2022. That's when Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, confirmed it. He went on record saying yes, Diddy was behind Wendy getting fired. That's right, the thing everybody said was just Wendy being Wendy turned out to be the truth. So now here we are, in 2024, watching Diddy stand trial for sex trafficking, drug possession, and weapons charges. And suddenly, all that gossip Wendy used to spill is looking less like scandal and more like prophecy.
He was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, and battery, and making terroristic threats.
Help him to get support. Cassie posted a photo of herself the other day. Here's the photo. And he commented, "Love you forever." Well, I thought that he was now with a 22-year-old. He's in South Africa filming Honey 3. And she allegedly has been avoiding Puffy. And, you know, my thing about when you date a mogul is that it's really difficult to avoid them, because if you use your head, you never know when they're going to pop up on the scene. Like, he's mogul, like he can hire a plane right now, zoom into South Africa, land on the roof of the hotel where she's staying, okay? Pay people off at the front desk, give me the key and let me up in her room. Like, I'm already paranoid as a person. But to know that somebody could actually swoop down on me in the middle of nothing would scare the bejesus out of me.
Wendy wasn't just messy, she was strategic. Her microphone was her weapon, and her platform was her battleground. The industry painted her as a troublemaker, but in hindsight, she might have just been one of the few people telling the truth in real time. Gene Deal validating her story isn't just a side note, it reframes everything. If Diddy had the power to get a top radio host fired in the late 90s over rumors, then imagine the kind of power he wielded over the people around him. Assistants, artists, dancers, anyone who dared to step out of line. So now the question is, was Wendy Williams blackballed, or was she just too early for her own good? Too loud, too blunt, and too real for an industry built on silence, payoffs, and public image? One thing's clear, the same industry that laughed at Wendy now finds itself catching up to the stories she told decades ago. And that, right there, is poetic justice. Wendy Williams didn't just sip the tea, she spilled it before anyone else had even boiled the water. Day 8 of Diddy's federal trial just got real ugly. Agents from Homeland Security took the stand again, and this time they brought receipts, literal ones. Photos were shown to the jury of a .45 caliber handgun found in a red suitcase at Diddy's Miami guest house. The room where it was found? Described as a guard shack, but judging by the vibe, it was more like a fortress of freakery. Now it gets grimy. Agents also found a Gucci bag because of course it's Gucci, containing white residue that tested positive for cocaine and ketamine. But wait, there's more. Inside that same bag were multiple colored pills that tested positive for MDMA and Xanax. Basically, if it had a street name and got you high, it was in that bag. Defense attorneys tried to downplay the firearm situation, pointing out that the AR-15 rifles found in Diddy's master bedroom were dismantled, taped up, and unloaded. But the prosecution wasn't letting that slide. The serial numbers were filed off. Yeah, that's not exactly giving legal gun collector. When asked, the agent testified that even without serial numbers, guns can still be linked to their owners through fingerprints, DNA, and other forensic evidence. Let's not forget, this is a sex trafficking and racketeering trial. But the presence of guns, coke, ketamine, ecstasy, and Xanax in one closet paints a picture of a man living like Pablo Escobar with a Spotify playlist. Diddy's attorneys want to make this a case about consensual relationships gone wrong, but the government's over here building a case about organized, criminal excess. If you ever wondered what a Gucci bag filled with your downfall looks like, Diddy's courtroom just provided the visual. And the jury? They're eating it up. In day 8 of Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial, prosecutors brought a key witness to the stand, George Kaplan, Diddy's former assistant. Kaplan didn't show up as just another employee, he arrived with immunity. The government made it clear, you tell the truth, you're protected. But if you lie? That deal disappears. Perjury could still put you in prison. Kaplan's testimony peeled back the curtain on the daily operations inside Diddy's world. His job wasn't just scheduling meetings or picking up dry cleaning, he had to prepare toiletry bags with military precision. Everything had to be neatly packed and facing forward. A single bag could take up to 30 minutes to assemble. That's not personal assistant work, that's servant level control. He was also tasked with cleaning hotel rooms after Diddy's wild nights. Not because Diddy was tidy, but because the mess was dangerous. Kaplan said the rooms were often filled with empty liquor bottles, baby oil, and even white powder near the sink. He cleaned it all up to prevent photos from leaking to the tabloids. Because if the public saw what went on behind those doors, the entire empire could collapse. One detail stood out. Kaplan admitted to accepting a delivery of MDMA for Diddy in Miami. That's not a rumor, that's sworn testimony under oath. That moment tied drug distribution directly to Diddy's name, through someone who lived inside the circle. But Kaplan's role wasn't just operational, it was psychological. His testimony painted a picture of a culture of silence, where employees were expected to protect the brand at all costs. This wasn't just about loyalty. It was about fear, image, and power. When assistants are running interference for celebrities, hiding drugs, wiping down hotel rooms, and controlling optics, you have to ask, how much did Diddy know? Or better yet, how much did he direct? Kaplan didn't come across as bitter. He didn't sound like someone with an agenda. His words were simple, and his details were chilling. Whether or not the jury believes him, his testimony added weight to the prosecution's narrative, that Diddy wasn't just a bystander in a chaotic lifestyle. He was the architect. The fact that Kaplan testified under immunity shows the feds are building something bigger. They're stacking witnesses, piece by piece, brick by brick, to show that what looked like a music empire on the outside might have been something much darker on the inside. This isn't just about celebrity gossip anymore. This is about the infrastructure of power, privilege, and paranoia and the people who were used to keep it standing. One of the biggest questions people ask when abuse allegations come out is, why didn't they leave? It's a question that often sounds innocent but carries blame. In Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial, prosecutors brought in Dr. Dawn Hughes to answer that question once and for all. Dr. Hughes is a clinical and forensic psychologist, and she broke it down in simple terms. Victims of abuse, especially women, often fall into three categories. They feel trapped, emotionally attached to the abuser, or they simply can't imagine a life beyond the relationship. These aren't just feelings, they're psychological chains. She explained how abuse isn't just physical. It's emotional, psychological, financial, and sexual. The pain causes deep shame, and shame forces silence. Victims often keep quiet, not because they want to but because they feel no one will believe them, or worse, they feel they deserve it. Dr. Hughes also emphasized the role of money. Financial control is a weapon. If you don't have money, she said, you're left with the feeling of, where am I going to go? And when you're with someone as rich, famous, and powerful as Diddy, that question gets even heavier. Where do you go when the whole world is protecting the person who's hurting you? This testimony matters because it reframes the narrative. For too long, survivors have been asked why they stayed instead of asking abusers why they made it impossible to leave. But the defense tried to poke holes in her credibility. Diddy's attorney, Jonathan Bach, asked if she had ever represented someone accused of a sex crime. Her answer? No. That's correct, she said. I don't evaluate offenders. Then he hit the money angle. Hughes is being paid $600 an hour by the prosecution. That fact might sway some jurors. But the truth of her expertise remains intact. This segment of the trial isn't about gossip, drugs, or parties. It's about the psychological warfare that can trap people behind closed doors even when those doors lead to million-dollar mansions. Dr. Hughes gave a voice to the silence. She helped the jury and the public understand how power, manipulation, and fear can create a prison with invisible walls. Because at the end of the day, abuse doesn't always leave bruises you can see. Sometimes it leaves scars on the mind. And when someone like Diddy is accused of building a world that thrives on silence and submission, that psychological context becomes the key to everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe, because this story is still unraveling. And Rank Mogul is here to bring you every piece of the puzzle.